Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good job, Jack.
I am especially troubled by the sheer magnitude of the warnings the SEC received in the Madoff case and either neglected to look into it or just scratched the surface and called it a day. Specific allegations were brought to the attention of the staff as early as 1999, but even after regulators conducted 8 investigations over 16 years, virtually nothing was done. And so let me ask you, in 2000, when your 2005 investigation revealed that Mr. Madoff misled the SEC about the strategy he used for customer accounts, withheld information about the accounts, violated SEC rules by operating as an unregistered investment advisor, didn't you think it was appropriate to use your subpoena power to collect information rather than just rely on Mr. Madoff's voluntary responses and submissions?
Senator, as I have said, I cannot talk about the particulars of this investigation.
Well, that's not satisfactory, so let me just change the question for you.
Sure.
You have a case, any case, and that case ultimately reveals to you that an individual creates a strategy that misled you about the way in which they used their customer accounts, that they withheld information from the accounts, that they violated SEC rules by operating as an unregistered investment advisor in such a set of circumstances, regardless of who it was. Wouldn't that say to you that, in fact, you should use your subpoena power to collect information rather than just, accept voluntary submissions?
If I may, sir, let me talk about when we get subpoena power versus not getting subpoena power, because that may, without reference to particular items, we can investigate and do often investigate without subpoena power. Indeed, we bring actions. We go to the Commission, recommend the action be brought when we've never had subpoena power. We collect information. We can take testimony without subpoenas. We can get information from not only the persons and entities we're focused on, but from others. That's especially true in the regulated entity arena, where the businesses feel that they need to give us the records in all events, so they do it without need of subpoena. When people provide information to us, they are, regardless of whether they have a subpoena, they can be subject to 1001 criminal prosecution if they provide false information. So whether or not we seek a subpoena, it really depends on whether or not we need to have a subpoena to obtain certain kinds of records. Phone records, for example, we can never get without a subpoena. So those are decisions we make along the way. In terms of the information that we seek and the roads we go down roads until, in the best judgment of the investigator, it doesn't make any sense to continue. And we are never stopped by the fact that we need to get a subpoena.
Well, I appreciate your answer. Tell me all the things you could do. What I am concerned is about what you do when there are a series of circumstances presented to you, not what you could do. And, the reality is, why would someone hide all this information if it isn't for the reasons of fraud? Why would that not, in fact, instigate you to go much further?
Again, if we think that there's fraud going on, we will continue. And while I cannot talk about the specifics of this particular case, we don't turn a blind eye to fraud. If we see it, if we suspect it, we pursue it. We don't want fraudsters out there. It is our job to find them.
So Mr. Madoff was smarter than all of you.
Again, I can't comment on what we did or why we did it.
Well, I have a real problem, Mr. Chairman. I understand the specifics of a case, but if I can't get even general answers to processes, how does one pursue a process so that we understand when the Commission is using its powers effectively and when it is not using its power effectively? I appreciate the broad statement that we don't let fraud go on, but God, the bottom line is you had a series of warning signs, you had an investigation, you had all the elements of why someone would in fact pursue it just for the purposes of fraud, and that didn't generate anything, and I don't get a sense that in fact you can give me what is your process to ensure that circumstances like this don't happen prospectively.
Well, Senator, let me say this, that the Inspector General has the same concerns that you have, as we all do, to find out precisely what happened here, what steps were taken, what decisions were made, and he is pursuing that with vigor, and we are not getting in the way of that investigation.
Dr. Coffey, let me ask you a question. Several of Mr. Madoff's family members work for agencies responsible for regulating Mr. Madoff's firm. It seems to me that it might be simple human nature that people would not be as quick to investigate and punish one of their own if, in fact, they were family members versus being complete strangers. Do you think that this is an area of concern that we should be looking at?
I think that there are others within Madoff Securities that have to bear responsibility, and we've already heard from FINRA that they were never told about this investment advisory business. I would think the Chief Compliance Officer of Madoff Securities, who happens to be the brother of Bernie Madoff, has a lot to answer for in terms of whether he defrauded the SEC or FINRA in making false statements about the non-existence of investment advisory clients or the failure to disclose what was the business they were actually doing. So I think there were many possible areas where there could have been false statements made to government agencies or to FINRA that are within scope of federal criminal law.
And finally, Dr. Is it Backey? Backey. Dr. Backey, let me ask you, you're one of the direct victims of the scheme. There are several from my home state of New Jersey that unfortunately face the same set of circumstances. And while I know we don't focus on taxation issues in this committee, it seems to me that one of the areas is you all paid estimated taxes based on some phantom interest income, because you obviously were never really actually having your monies invested and having interest income. And so, which Mr. Madoff claimed that you did have. Have you received any guidance from the IRS or any other federal agency about the possibility of being able to get back some of that money?
Well, our situation is a little different because this was a pension fund, so it never was taxable income. And there lies our problem, because our experts and our consultants tell us that we are therefore not allowed to claim a theft loss. The company already took the deduction for the contribution for 2008, 7, and 6, so we can't make another contribution. We asked our accountants and asked them to ask other accountants if we could at least refund 2008, because basically the money never got invested. Actually, none of the money ever got invested all along. So we are in a bind because there's a lot of controversy out there whether or not a theft loss is applicable to pension plans. We also know that Madoff's records were in disarray, and we being a 401k, we don't know whether the rules that CIPC uses really apply to our entity, and we do not know where to turn. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, to see if the government can step in and CIPC can step up and tell us, give us direction, what should we do? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I hope we can, whether working with the Finance Committee or whoever, look at this question of phantom interest. It seems to me that it might very well be worthy of the IRS having a special unit to assist those people who were victims here, who were paying what they ostensibly thought were clearly taxes that they owed, and obviously they didn't know. And the question is how to give some relief to some of these individuals along the way. It would be something I think worthy of pursuing, and I appreciate your advocacy.
If my colleague would, why don't you draft a letter for us to sign together with you to the Finance Committee and the IRS, raising those issues and questions and asking for some responses. I'll be glad to co-sponsor with you. Let me, if I can, I thank you, Senator, very much for your questions and reflecting